UN, recently became UN, as I guess most of you know, UN Agency on Migration. And we are characterized by a programmatic diversity and extensive field presence. So this really gives us the opportunity of having a comprehensive perspective on the complexity and multifaceted aspect of migration. So we work in emergency setting, giving support to displaced people. We provide support to stranded migrants to go back to their own countries. We support trafficking victims. We try to fight against trafficking. We work closely with the government and provide suggestions on how to develop comprehensive migration policies or to design labor mobility programs. So we really have, these are just a few of the things that the organization does. So it's really, that provides us a very comprehensive view of what migration and the complexity of migration really is. So what does that mean for remittances is that for us, we see remittances as one of the wide array of migration-related parameters on development. Not the only one, but certainly one of them. What are remittances? We define it, financial remittances as multi-directional, voluntary, and private international monetary transfers. We also think that, as we said just a while ago, remittances are great because even when they're used on consumption, they contribute to improving education, social services, and so on. This is true. We do believe, though, that the biggest impact of remittances happens when, in fact, there is a state behind it does provide for those services that are. So it's not something that should substitute state interventions, of course. Now, how does remittances fit into the IOM framework, if you want? We have a constitution. The article number 1 says that one of the purposes and function of the organization is to provide member states with migration services such as recruitment, selection, processing, language training, advisory services, and other assistance. So remittances are not directly mentioned here, but that also means that IOM is very concerned with the conditions under what money is earned, sent, and used. So we'll see in a couple of minutes how the recruitment processes have an impact also on how remittances can be maximized. The second framework that we have is the MyGov, so-called MyGov. It's the Migration Governance Framework, which is a new tool that the organization has developed to better guide our work. It's composed of 3 principles and 3 objectives. And one of the 3 objectives is promote migrants' well-being. How is that done? One of the points mentioned clearly and stated under the MyGov is facilitating low-cost channels for remittances and supporting opportunities for investment. So in this case, in our framework that guides our work, remittances are directly referred to, and also the reducing of their costs. Again, this is not the only way that we see as to promote migrants' well-being. Other points are referred to in the MyGov, such as ensuring equal access to the labor market, access to health, and so on. But again, remittances is part of as a real role to play within this. I won't spend so much time on the SDG. I think the speakers who just talked before me mentioned SDG number 10C. Just to say that IOM is also committed to work towards the achievement of that target, and we do that. I'll just get into that within the next slides. So now, IOM programming or remittances. What do we actually do? Just to repeat, we see remittances as private funds, so it's something that senders and recipients are free to decide how to use. Certainly, we can have a role in guiding, but they remain private funds, and I think we all agree on that. Due to the nature, I would say, of the organizations, as I said, it's very operational. So we really have hands on the ground. We work directly with migrants. We do work with central governments, of course. Our member states, we are governed by them, but our strength is really our presence, our being down to earth, working with the migrants, with the local communities, and so on. So we do see our value added and our strength also on remittances working at the micro and meso level. We do know remittances has a big impact also at the macro level. What IOM does happens more at the micro and meso level. And so that's where we try to help ensure that development effects of remittances are maximized and negative impacts, such as dependency, which can actually happen, are minimized. There are three core considerations that we take into account when engaging into remittances work. First of all, and I mentioned that before, is promoting well-being of migrant workers, so that remittances are earned through decent work conditions. So what does that mean for programming? That means that we do pay a lot of attention as to the overall migration cycle, starting from the recruitment process to the employment stage of migration. So we do work in ensuring that recruitment happens under transparent conditions and rules, because only like that, only migrants who actually don't have to incur into huge recruitment costs, as unfortunately often happens, can start off their migration experience in a much more positive way and are in a condition of saving more money and sending more money back. The organization has recently developed what we call IRIS, the International Recruitment Integrity System, which is a voluntary multi-stakeholder certification system that, that we are developing through public-private partnership. So this is all, we see all this work we are doing on recruitment very much linked to remittances and the impact that this can have on development, because as the reason I just mentioned. The second consideration is reducing remittances transaction cost, which is directly linked to the SDG number 10. So one thing we do is obviously trying to build on our strengths and expertise and match it with other organizations' expertise. And so in this vein, we work together with the Universal Postal Union, for example. Somebody mentioned the importance of also postal services in ensuring that we manage to get remittances also in most remote areas and where migrants actually come from, and to ensure and maximize the possibility for migrants to use formal services as well. So we do work together with the UPU. We have an ongoing pilot project in Burundi, trying to really build on the network of the Postal Union and trying and seeking to use it for remittances purposes as well. Don mentioned the importance of data and information. Of course, costs can be reduced if we know who sends money, how much, to whom, with what channels. He mentioned still for Africa there is a knowledge gap. IOM is also committed in trying to address this knowledge gap. And I mean, what we are doing here today and the work of AIR, the ACP-EU action, goes directly to address this challenge of research and improving the knowledge base on remittances. Another thing that IOM is involved in terms of trying to support the reduction of remittances cost is ensuring and promoting transparency in money transfer cost operations. So Amadou showed the website of Send Money Africa, which is a cost comparison website. IOM is also work on that type of action. We are also working with the private sector, with TawiPay in Switzerland, trying to ensure that tools are available for migrants to be able to, on a real time basis, compare costs. And we believe that with that, this is not the only way that remittances costs are going to be reduced, but certainly a more informed decision-making process by the migrant and pressure on the services provided on trying to provide more transparent cost and the breakdown of those. We do believe that this is going to contribute to reduce remittances costs. The third consideration regards improving access to financial services. Financial inclusion is very important. Often households receiving remittances are also low-income households and are those who are very much excluded often from financial services, and therefore they don't have really access to saving schemes, insurance schemes, and so on. We do believe it's very important to open up promote financial inclusion, and this is also done through financial literacy. We also believe that it's important that for migrants to empower them and enhance their knowledge and options they have on how to use remittances. It's not telling them what they need to do. We do believe it's private funds, but then empowering them and giving information both to the senders and to the recipients certainly can improve the impact that remittances have. We do see that trust among migrants and communities is often an issue, and it's not just trust between those who send remittances and say their governments, but it's also trust with their communities, with their families sometimes. That's what we see in Senegal at least. And so ensuring that there is a deeper understanding of what the options are can really contribute to maximize the impact of remittances. Just to finish on this point, we have developed as well some tools that can be used for providing at the local level stakeholders with tools to provide migrants with information on how remittances can be used for education, for vocational trainings, for small business investments. This was part of a joint project IOM implemented with UNDP over the last few years, the Joint Migration and Development Initiative, which was really focusing on mainstreaming migration into local development actions. And so we do have a toolbox, and actually I mentioned that because it might be useful also for others working on the same issues. Just to conclude, so when migration occurs under positive rather than constraining circumstances, it can really enable people to enhance and maximize their human potential. Also through raising their incomes, but not just through raising their incomes. And I want to stress that because, again, we see remittances as one of the parameters for development. There are also obviously potential negative aspects or impacts of migration that sometimes are less easy to measure, like social costs. We talked about that just a while before, abuse of rights, and so on. So what we think is really that it's important to locate the discussion of remittances within the wider development agenda. We need to have a human touch to that. We talked a lot about that this morning. It's just to repeat what my colleague Jeff has mentioned earlier during the meeting. It's important to avoid shifting responsibility from state to migrants. Of course, states still have their own responsibilities. What we can do is creating enabling frameworks, and this means frameworks for transferring costs, and I know we are going to talk a lot about that during the next few days, improving transparency, competition, awareness among the migrants, but also developing cross-cutting government policies, such as labor market regulations, or developing incentives for migrants to really be able to be put in a position to be willing to invest back home without having doubts as to whether their investments are going to be productive. I think I'm going to stop here, and I thank you very much for the attention.